Hi, this is Al Williams of Sunset Hill Solutions. In this video, I'll be walking you through different ways of scheduling reports in Business Objects 4. Before we start scheduling reports, we're going to want to make sure that the required settings in the Central Management Console are set for some of the various options you can use for scheduling reports. So let's go into the CMC, and we want to double click on Servers. And then we'll go to Web Intelligence Services and Adaptive Job Server. We'll double click on this. We want to click on Destination. And with Business Objects, you have several different methods you can use for scheduling reports. For example, you can have Business Objects set to email reports to users with the report as an attachment. You can have reports uploaded to an FTP server, and you can have reports sent directly to the file system. So you want to make sure you set these default settings in the Adaptive Job Server. You do have the ability to overwrite them for individual instances of scheduling reports. So for example here, for file system, I've set the directory as C report output, and I've set it the name of the file to be the report name plus the start time as a date stamp and the file extension. For the email, I've set the email settings for my hosting company, so we can test this. You have to put your email host, port, the authentication method, and so forth. This is fairly standard for any application that sends emails. I just wanted to point out that it's important to go into the CMC and set up the Adaptive Job Server to get it ready for report scheduling. Okay, we'll cancel out of here and we'll switch back to BI Launchpad. I've created a folder called Scheduled Reports. The first report in this folder is called Dynamic Prompt Sample. I'll be showing how to use this report for scheduling at the end of the demo, and this is based on another video I did showing you how you can create reports that have a dynamic default date prompt. Date prompt that automatically gets filled in based on the date the report is run, and it allows you to set up monthly reports, for example, without having to fill in the prompt every month. For example, you want to run a report on February 1st, but you want it to be as of January 31st. The functionality to be able to do that with the scheduler in Business Objects is with this report right here, and that's more advanced. For now, I'm just going to focus on this eFashion sample and show you a lot of the different options you can have for scheduling reports. Let's go ahead and do our first sample. So I want to right click on the report and select schedule, and of course you're going to have to make sure that any users you give the ability, or that you want to have the ability to schedule reports, that they're given that access right in the CMC. So I'll go ahead and click on schedule. I'll just walk you through some of the general options. So the instance title, by default it's the report name. You can change this. For example, I could go ahead just say eFashion sample test. Recurrence. There's a whole pile of options here. For now, I'm going to leave this as now so it runs immediately. A little bit later in the video I'll explain how you can set up for these other options. Prompts. This allows you to change the default prompt for the report. So let's see, it was set to 2005. I'll change it to 2004. Click apply. And let's see, the next option I want to do is I want to schedule this report as a Microsoft Excel file. I'm going to skip over caching and events right now and scheduling server group. I'm going to go ahead to go to destinations. In this case, I want to email this report to a specific person. I can go ahead and fill in all of the fields on this form. In this case, I want to use the default settings that I set in the CMC, and I'm going to click on schedule, and we can see the report is pending. If I refresh this screen, now the report is running. It should be finished in a minute. And now we see the status was success. So I'm going to go to my email account, and I see I have a email from myself. I set this up to be sent to my email account from my email account, just for testing purposes. So I'm going to click on this email, and here we go. Your Web Intelligence report is attached to this email. The name of the report here is the instance name that we gave it, and here's the report itself. It has the report name, the instance name here, eFashion sample-test, the date stamp that we specified in the CMC as part of the file name, and its Excel file. I'm going to go ahead and open this as a Google spreadsheet, and we'll just see if there are results here. And indeed, we have the report. It was emailed to my email account successfully, and this shows you how you can set reports to be emailed to one or more users with business objects. You don't have to send emails to an individual person. If you have Active Directory or some alternative where you can set up groups of users, you can send an email to groups of users instead of individual users. So now let's go ahead and schedule a report. And this time we'll leave the default instance title. I'm going to set the recurrence to, let's see, hourly. And I'm going to make it for every 3 minutes. And what we're going to do is we're going to have this report saved to disk, and we're going to go check in a few minutes and see if it's actually been scheduling this report to run every 3 minutes. And we'll make sure the reports exist. For the prompts, I'm just going to leave the default prompt, which is 2005. Format, I'm going to make it a Adobe Acrobat file. And for destinations, this time I'm going to pick File System. And I'm going to use the default settings. Again, you can override that, but I've set it to a specific drive or folder on my hard drive. And I'm going to schedule this report. And we can see there's a couple of instances that are set as recurring right now. Let's see if one of them is running. Yeah, the first one is running now. So we're going to check back on this one in a few minutes and see if it's created the files to disk. Okay, I took a 10-minute break there, and we can see that this report has run successfully 3 times. So it appears the report is being run approximately every 3 minutes. And let's have a look at the hard drive here. And indeed, we have three copies of that report. And if I double click on one of them, it should open in, there we go, it's a PDF file. So that functionality is working just fine. One thing that's important to point out is I don't particularly want to have this report run every 3 minutes forever, so I'm going to go ahead, in order to stop this report from running every 3 minutes before the expiry date. And when I set this up, I didn't change the expiry date. By default, the expiry date I think is 10 years in the future if you don't change it. I'm going to go ahead and delete this recurring job so that this report doesn't run anymore. Okay. Let's move along now and schedule a report to be uploaded to an FTP server. So I'm going to leave all the defaults for this report, except for the destinations, and I'm going to go ahead and pick FTP server. As mentioned a few times previously in the video, you do have the ability to overwrite the FTP server settings, but I'm going to use the default settings and run the object now and click on schedule. And now I'm looking at my FTP site, and I can see that the report did get uploaded to my FTP account. Let's go ahead and look at some of the properties for when you can schedule a report to run. By default, it's going to run the object now. And typically you're going to want to have it run at a certain time of the day, or monthly or weekly. Maybe you just want to have it run once, and in this case, when you want it just to run once but not now, you specify the date and time you want it to run. If you want it to run hourly, or as we showed earlier, every 20 minutes or something like that, you pick the hourly option and you set the interval. Start time and end time. What this means is for this scheduled report, it's going to start running today every 20 minutes, and it's going to stop running in 10 years from now, which is a default. So if you want this report to run every 20 minutes for the next hour, then you would just change this end date and time. Daily. Again, this is if you want a report to run every single day, and you pick the date, the start time that you want it to run, and the end time is for the job, when you want this job to cease running. Weekly. This one is fairly flexible, actually. It allows you not just to run it once, well, you can run it once a week. Let's say we want to run it just on Saturday, but let's say we wanted it to run Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday on business days. This allows us the flexibility just to pick it to run on business days excuse me, at a certain time every day. Monthly. This is typical for a lot of production reports at the company I work at. We have a lot of monthly reports that run on the first day of the month, and we use the monthly object or monthly option here. Nth day of month. The nth day of month is very similar to the month option, except here you explicitly state the day of the month that you want the report to run. So for example, if we wanted to have the report run on the 15th of every month, we would select this recurrence option and we'd fill in the appropriate values here. First Monday of every month. This is one that I've never used before, but I guess if you need to have a report scheduled to run on the first day of every month, you would pick this one. Set the start time and when you want this job to be finished running. Last day of the month. This one is more common. I guess if you your company has reports that run on the last day of the month, you can use this option. This one's a bit more complicated. And I have to admit, I've never used this particular option, but let's say, for instance, you want to have a report to run the second week of every month on Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock a.m. You would use this X day of nth week of the month option up here. Again, it's not one that I've used before, but certainly allows a lot of flexibility in terms of when you want to schedule reports. The very last option for recurrence is calendar, and as you can see right now, it's showing us there are no calendars. These have to be defined in the central management console by an administrator of the system. So actually, let's go ahead and define a calendar. We can show you how flexible you can make your report scheduling by creating custom defined calendars. So first I'll cancel out of here. I'll go over to the central management console and I'll pick calendars, which are right in the middle here, define calendars. And I want to create a new calendar. And I'm going to call this demo calendar, and I'm going to give it a description, demo calendar for report scheduling. Click OK. Now I've got the calendar created, but I haven't set any dates, so I double click on the calendar and I pick on select dates, and here we go. We have a calendar for the next year. So let's say I want to have this report run on March 1st and April 1st and May 1st. So we're going to run it first day of the month for the next 3 months. Now we could have used first day of the month option, but I'm just showing you how the calendar works. So I'm going to save and close this. Now if I double click on it again, we'll see those dates are highlighted in the calendar. Save and close. We'll go back to BI Launchpad, schedule this report again, and for recurrence I'm going to pick calendar, and now we've got a drop-down list showing the calendars that have been defined in the CMC. In this case, we've only got the one demo calendar, and it's actually kind of nice because it gives you a visual representation of the dates that were selected in the calendar that's been picked here. So I can go ahead and schedule this, and it shows as a recurring job. If I want to see the information about any one of these recurring jobs, I can click on that line and go to instance details, and it gives me information about this particular job. The title of the report, the document type, the fact that it's recurring, the administrator is the owner because I set this up, start, creation time and next run time, recurrence type, and the fact that it's based on a calendar, and the name of the calendar that this is going to be run on. Click on back, and I'll close this. So we've looked at a lot of the basic functionality for scheduling reports. We're going to get a bit more advanced now. I'm going to go ahead now and look at the events option. Now I haven't set any events up yet. We're going to do that right away. The scenario that we're going to do this for is a monthly report that runs on the first of the month at 5 in the morning, but we want to make sure that the ETL process that populates the database for this report has completely finished. Now typically it should be finished by 5 o'clock in the morning, but if there are delays and the ETL process hasn't finished and the data isn't complete in the database, we don't want this report to run at 5 o'clock. We want it to run when it's ready. So we're going to create what you can use the term trigger file, a file that has to be in place on the file system before the report will run. So let's go ahead and cancel out of here for now. We'll go into the CMC and we'll go into events, and we're going to go into system events, and we're going to create a new event. So I've gone ahead and selected file as the type of event. I've called it the monthly trigger file. Excuse me. And the file name is going to be in C trigger files, and the file name is trigger.txt. So it's going to just be a blank text file that has to exist in this location before the report will run. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now we have this trigger file. It's being created in the CMC. Go back to BI Launchpad. Okay, let's go and test the event that we created. I'm going to go schedule the report again. Now I said it was a monthly trigger file, but in order to illustrate how this functionality works with the events, I'm going to have the object run now. I'm going to go ahead and select events, system events, and there's the one we just created, monthly trigger file, and events to wait for, and we've picked our event here. I'm going to schedule the report, and we see that the status is pending. If I refresh this, it's still pending, and there's a reason it's still pending, and that would be because in our C trigger files folder there is no file called trigger.txt. Now just to make sure that it's not running still, we'll just refresh this one more time, and it still says pending. I'm going to go ahead and copy a trigger.txt file into this folder. So now we have the trigger.txt file in the trigger files folder, and so that should satisfy the condition we created for this event. Now if I refresh the history for this report, now we see the report is running because we have the trigger file in place and the report ran successfully. So I find trigger files are very, very useful, and I think a lot of companies probably have a need to do something like this where you want a report to run on a regular basis, but you want to make sure that the database is completely populated, especially if you use an ETL process to populate your reporting database. And if there's any delays, any problems with that database being populated, you don't want the reports to run with incomplete data. So it's very, very useful functionality. The last example I want to show is sort of a follow-up to a video I produced a few weeks ago, and you can search for that on YouTube. Just type in dynamic default date prompts or business objects for scheduling, and you should be able to find this report or this video quite easily. And what this video shows is how you can create a filter at the universe level that will automatically populate prompts in your report based on certain criteria. So for example, you're running a report February 1st after the month end is complete, but you want it to run as of January 31st, and then at the end of February, when it runs on March 1st, you want it to run as of February 28th. You don't want to have to set the prompts every time you schedule a report. You want this to be automatic, and if you have a look at this video, you can see how this can be done. So having watched this video that I created earlier, I'm going to go ahead now and schedule the report that has a dynamic default date prompt. What I'm going to do is go ahead and schedule it. I'm going to schedule it to run now as a web intelligence report. I'm not going to change anything with this report except for the prompts. And if we have a look here, you'll see that the text I have for this prompt, enter period as YYYYMM, or use the default with these characters and it's going to give you the data for the previous month. Sounds a bit complicated, but it sort of follows what I said earlier. So I want this report, because I'm running it on, today is February 17th, I want this to run as of January 31st. I'm running it in the following month, so it's going to give me the year month previous to this. I'm going to go ahead and schedule this report right now. So the report ran successfully. Now we just want to have a look at the report itself, and we want to make sure that the report did run as of January 2013, and you can see that it did. So by leaving the default of YYYYMM as the prompt for this report, and because I ran it in February of 2013, it ran the report with data from as of the previous month end, and that's exactly what we wanted. So let's run this report with a different date parameter, just to show you that it does actually work if you select a different value. So I'm going to select 2013-02, so that's the current month. If I had left the default here YYYYMM, it would run as of January 31st, but I'm actually going to select February 2013. Run the query, and I have results for February 2013. Run it once again with the default, and now the data is for January. So I suggest you have a look at that dynamic default date prompt video to wrap your head around how this was accomplished. But this is very useful because typically when you want to schedule monthly reports, quite often there's going to be a date parameter in them, and you don't want to have to schedule them every month, especially if you've got dozens and dozens of reports. So this is a really nice solution to give you that functionality. So that's the end of this video. I hope you found it informative. Once again, this was Al Williams from Sunset Hill Solutions, and thank you for watching.